Then, Leping asks if she would be willing to join him. But right away, the hero questions himself mentally, admitting that he is so nervous that his lips are trembling. However, the queen gently touches him and replies that it's fine, asking him not to say anything else, since she accepts. She adds that as long as he wishes, he can do whatever he wants. Upon hearing this, Leping realizes that Elizabeth misunderstood what he said earlier and clarifies that he didn't mean that. But then Elife and Pythias appear, commenting that they stayed under the elephant fountain's water curtain for more than 30 minutes. Pythias questions whether the other places are unattractive and if this one is truly the best, stating that the data can help them improve what isn't reasonable. Elife confirms that she is taking notes, and that it is no coincidence Pythias is the queen of the kingdom of Aristotle, since her scientific thinking is very rigorous. Seeing them, Leping comments that it's a coincidence to run into them and asks them not to worry too much about them, while thinking they ruined the romantic mood. Elizabeth, angry, declares that it's enough, that she has had too much of this. Slowly walking toward the girls, she apologizes to Leping and states that she will never be able to fully integrate into the mental world of the lower beings as he does. She explains that allowing them to approach doesn't mean they can be so insolent. She reflects that once again they interrupted her time alone with Leping, and whether on purpose or not, now they must disappear. She begins to release an enormous amount of energy spreading throughout the hotel. Elsewhere, Uncle Boss asks the Dwarf King what that means, and he replies that it's bad, as he recognizes that sensation. He explains that 500 years ago, when the Demon Queen unleashed that wrath, nearly half of the human kingdom's population vanished. Meanwhile, Ching tells Gigi that suddenly the entire inn was covered by a terrifying aura, and that even space was distorted. Anna asks her aunt if this is the evil presence she had mentioned, about to descend, and if they should go in to help. But Gigi replies that such magical power is not something they can withstand, and asks them to stay there since she will go in. At the same time, she thinks that aura comes from the Demon Queen, and wonders what is happening. Elsewhere in Malfoy's hideout, the man laughs and ecstatically declares that this is the aura of Her Majesty, the one he dreamed day and night of feeling again. Her imposing and majestic pressure has him completely fascinated, admitting that he will never forget the first time he witnessed her fury, when he took her to visit his father's castle's underground laboratory. There, upon discovering that half of the village had been turned into a zombie army through cadaveric magic, she emitted a pressure so strong that it engraved that terror deeply into every cell of his body, leaving an indelible mark. So much so that the memory drives him mad, and he cannot help but revel in how good it feels. He recalls when she said that giving someone a distorted life was also an opportunity to disappear. It was at that moment that he, Wes Malfoy, secretly swore to dedicate his entire life to being her dog, even if he was beaten countless times by the Queen, which did end up happening on some occasions. Back in the present, the man chokes and reflects that serving by her side, longing for her rewards and fearing being eliminated at any moment, that suffocating sensation of walking on thin ice, is incredible. He longs with all his being to experience it personally again. But he complains, for even though she is right above, he cannot go to her. He confesses that this is painful and begs his beloved Elizabeth to wait for him a little longer. However, he strikes his thunder of flesh and shouts that he can't take it anymore, beginning to transform. He regains his clothes and part of his former appearance, declaring that after shedding his inferior personality toward her, he no longer settles for being her dog. He smiles and proclaims that he wants to possess her completely. On the other hand, Elizabeth comments that they need not fear, that when she is in a good mood she can recreate them at any time. But for now she will make them disappear completely, wrapping both Elife and Pythias with her magic. Seeing this, Leping asks her not to be impulsive, but reflects that he understands, since their insistence was so excessive that it made them uncomfortable to the point they couldn't even enjoy a peaceful date. Just then, someone shouts at the Queen to have mercy. It is Uncle Boss, flying toward them. He explains that the two girls are inexperienced and that, if they have offended the great Demon Queen in any way, he will take full responsibility, pleading for mercy. Kneeling at the queen's feet, trembling and sweating, he declares that even if a life must be given for another, he begs her to spare his daughter Elif. The queen, upon seeing him, asks if he also wants to disappear. With a simple motion, she casts her magic toward the man and declares that it's fine, that she will send him along with her. That power begins to envelop Boss, who realizes that not even the cards created by Leping can withstand it. He thinks that this time it's over, apologizes to Elif, and admits that unfortunately he cannot do anything either. Seeing all this, Leping wonders if this is how it should be, mentally recalling that he had almost forgotten she was always the demon queen. Realizing that the situation is very bad, the hero thinks that he must say something nice to calm her, and that he needs to do it now. But the queen asks her beloved not to stop her this time, declaring that sometimes violence is the most direct and effective means. However, Leping propels himself from a rock toward the queen, embraces her, and asks her not to do it. He begs her to calm down, for he knows that with a single thought she can destroy and reconstruct life. But he asks whether the recomposed soul is truly the same as it was at the beginning. He whispers in her ear that, just as the soul is unique, in his heart she is too. Upon hearing that single phrase, the queen blushes. She thinks it's true, that she has always played with life for appearances, being too superficial, and that, seen from the micro level, even the slightest deviation of magic makes the reconstructed soul no longer the same. She wonders if perhaps they and she are not the same. She philosophizes that Leping did not directly create a perfect companion, but instead chose to accompany her in her imperfection to grow together little by little. She admits that the soul is unique, and that if it were something mass-produced, existence itself would be meaningless. She considers that, in terms of respect and understanding of life, she is far below him. Moreover, although she has reached the peak of the holy level, in all that time she has not managed to break her limit. She believed herself to be omnipotent, and questions what she really lacks. She recalls when she tried to show her other form to Leping, but failed. She believes he organized this entire trip to help her break through her limit. She reviews the 4 steps: first expectation, then desire, followed by interruption, and lastly stimulation. She recalls a saying that when heaven wants someone to fall, it first drives them mad. She reasons that this is why the plan is to first awaken her desire and then interrupt it several times, to stimulate her and gather all the negative energy scattered in her mind. She reflects that the form he speaks of refers to the level of holiness, since he had hinted at the true purpose of that journey when he said he desired her, but that he did not want it to happen under those circumstances. She considers that every time he says something, she only understands the literal meaning, but not his intention. That is why she begins to make nonsensical guesses, which makes her laugh. However, he always manages to remain calm, guiding her with patience and eliminating every last trace of negative energy in her heart. She imagines him as an omnipotent being who removes the negative energy and causes in her a level breakthrough, moving from the level of holiness to the level of creation. After reasoning all that, she replies that she understands and undoes her power, which is released throughout the surroundings. Just then the others arrive and Annie asks what happened. The Dwarf King asks his queen to calm down, leaving Gigi confused. Annie questions if perhaps they didn't do their job well. Leping replies that yes, and that it was all a misunderstanding. He reflects that luckily, Elizabeth is easy to please, and that just saying a few nice words is enough for her to stop being angry. On the other hand, Elif comments that she feels a little dizzy, and Pythia states that she also feels that way. Gigi, however, reflects that they still don't know what happened, but what is certain is that Leping once again saved the world. At that moment, Boss bows and apologizes, stating that they will not bother them again and that they will leave immediately. Hearing this, Leping asks if they came all the way there just to leave right away. Boss quickly thinks that they are not going to lose their lives, but knows that punishment is inevitable, becoming frightened, just like the others. The queen, looking at him, thinks that she is calmer now, but wonders what he is trying to do. Then Leping comments that he has discovered a very serious problem. But before continuing, his subjects kneel, asking him to explain. The hero replies that he already understands them, that they are like this. Gigi, hearing this, wonders what he means. imagining that he is explaining that they always depend on his power to solve their problems, and that seeing them now, they are nothing more than mud unable to rise. But in reality, what happens is that everyone remains silent to listen to him. Then Leping questions whether they really haven't realized, revealing that they are almost never on the same wavelength when they speak with him. Everyone thinks they may have misunderstood his message. The queen, for her part, believes that he is saying one thing for another, that on the surface he spoke of them, but in reality, he wanted to clearly explain it to her. She feels relieved and states that she has already understood everything, promising not to imagine nonsensical things again. Leping then comments that when he said he wanted to go to some hot springs with Elizabeth, he actually just wanted to find a simple and quiet place. But they built such a huge and majestic hotel with such enthusiastic service that in the end, they made them feel uncomfortable. He asks the queen if that isn't so. Then, mentally, he asks her to explain to everyone that they have good intentions. The queen then confirms that this is so. This makes the others wonder if the hero is saying that the hot springs in the volcano, which they built with such effort, don't even compare to a small place. Moreover, they recognize that now they understand that their service made them uncomfortable and question how gods could even need them. Then Gigi speaks up and asks the hero how they can make amends for their mistakes. Leping, confused, questions what she means. Asking if he hasn't already said it, he cheerfully states that since they are there, they will all enjoy the hot springs together. Pythias asks if he is serious, and Elif questions if they will do it together with the two of them, considering that it would be insolent. But the hero replies that he has his own reasons, and that if they don't rest well, they won't be able to face what will happen that night, attracting the queen's gaze and leaving the others confused. But Leping reflects that a trip to the hot springs wouldn't be complete without a nighttime campfire, so he announces that that night they will have an outdoor barbecue. With everyone's participation, he assures, it will be much more fun. The queen, upon hearing this, calls out to him, but then thinks that she has already reached the level of creation and wonders if it is really necessary to continue relying on them to maintain peace. Leping laughs and asks Elizabeth to trust him, stating that that night there will be a surprise. She, upon hearing this, replies that if he says so, then it's fine, while deciding not to make unnecessary conjectures. Pythias remembers that they didn't bring swimsuits and asks if he has any fabric so she can make something, but Elif asks her not to be rude. Annie raises her hand and asks to be allowed to take on that task since she can sew for everyone. However, Elizabeth replies that it's not necessary, and with a simple motion she gives everyone swimsuits. She also adds that Amelia can come out as well. The little dragon appears, hugs her mistress, and declares that she loves her. Pythias, for her part, feels envious and reflects that her knowledge of the outside world is still too limited, and that just today, she made Elizabeth angry. But she declares to herself that she will not give up, and that one day she will also become a great mage like the queen. Now that everyone is ready, Leping announces that this inn was built with everyone's effort and asks them to release their frustrations and enjoy that achievement together in equality. However, everyone begins to cry, and the Dwarf King comments that he has lived 500 years and never imagined a day like this. Annie also speaks and expresses that Leping did not blame them, but instead even allowed them to enjoy the hot springs together. Boss, realizing everything, asks what they did to deserve such a gift. And Elif says that Leping's level of thought is so high that they, mere mortals, cannot reach it. At that moment, Gigi falls to her knees and reflects that that carefree attitude, tenderness, and profound tolerance is like that of someone who, from above, watches over them and teaches them, holding them in equality, even though they are ignorant and insignificant. She confesses to herself that she cannot stop her tears. Then Annie comments that she understands how Gigi feels, explaining that it's like that time she was selling dolls on the street and Leping bent down to ask the price. He truly treats them as equals, that he doesn't see himself as a god, but as a kind father. Leping sees everyone crying and wonders if perhaps he misspoke, since they have begun to digress again. But he considers that it's not surprising, since, after all, Elizabeth's intimidating power is very strong and may have impacted them psychologically. Just then, he asks Elizabeth if she is all right, and the queen replies that she is. Immediately, Lepping declares that now they are going to have fun, which everyone does at once.